Welcome to my hometown of South Portslade, which is in the city of Brighton Hove. Now, in this area, in recent months, we've had a rise in crime from burglary up to rape in the local parks. Now tonight, there's a meeting in this building behind me, which is a church. It's actually a church. And the Police and Crime Commissioner, Katie Bourne, and Chief Superintendent Neville Kemp are going to be in attendance, so it says here. Now, my big bugbear with this is, as we know, they spent £4 million at Balkan last year, £500,000 last weekend, the 27th of April, which was the March for England. So that's £4.5 million spent on two protests, yet they can't put police on the streets here. These people who are going to turn up here tonight are all council taxpayers, yet they're not getting value for money. And to add insult to injury, the lady in there, Katie Bourne, wants to charge every household in Sussex another £135 a year towards policing costs. Now, I've got some questions to ask about this. We're not getting value for money, it's fraud. We have to pay towards the cost of policing Brighton Town Centre on a Friday and Saturday night when it gets rough, but we get no police here. People getting raped, people getting burgled. So this is a pretty serious issue, and it may be local to here, but this is coming to you everywhere, because the more outside of a city centre you are, the more isolated they will make you. And there will be little gangs pop up and they will take over, and the police won't do anything about it because we haven't got the funding. But they can fund private enterprise or protection of private enterprise, such as iGas, Quadrilla, Celtic, all these fracking companies get the police protection that they've had. We're going to pay for it, and why should we? Why should we pay to protect private corporations? So I'm going to ask this woman in a few questions, so follow me.
You know, he's got away with it for a long time, so he's charged and he's got a in court this month.
Good.
And for jobs that happened, right up until the early 90s.
Yeah.
But so good.
And that's in this area. That's in this area, is it?
Yeah,
Bishop of Lewis. Yeah.
And he'd been sexually abusing kids for how long?
Mainly, he'd been doing it in East Sussex for 20 odd years up until the early 90s.
How do these guys get? I mean, how does it get so? How is it that it's kept quiet for so long?
Bishop's quite a powerful position in it. Nobody wants to say anything.
It says frightening things about our community, though, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, it does. But the good thing is that I think he is changing it.
Yeah, I really hope so.
I'll tell you what, we have.
I mean, what chance have we got?
This is working on him since for exactly a year. Every single day, just on that case, to get where we are now, to get in charge. But it shows how hard we try.
I mean, what chance have we got of turning out a decent, stable, younger generation if we keep shagging them all the time?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But the good thing is the church now were brilliant.
Yeah.
Really good, really helpful. Yeah, sorry, I've got his
I'm filming for True
Threat
Films. Yeah.
True Ferret Films. Oh, I've heard of you guys, haven't I? Why have I heard of you?
Yeah.
Who's it on behalf of then?
On behalf of me.
Oh, so what do you do with it then?
I put it on the internet.
Oh, right, okay.
It's a public meeting, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's not a lot. Obviously, there's not a lot of coverage here. So what we do basically is we come to little events like this where there's not a lot of coverage
Put it on the internet,
because people are interested and people can see what exactly is going down.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And your name is, sorry?
Yeah.
I'm Katie Bourne.
Katie Bourne. Oh, you're Katie Bourne.
Yeah, this is the lady.
Right. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, nice to meet you, Katie.
Shall I hang on to this then?
Absolutely. Yeah, check it.
We are looking at cameras and seeing if we can get sort of further cameras up within the area over by the toilets. And we will be deploying our mobile police camera van as and when we can. Mobile patrol units, we're getting down there as much as we possibly can. Obviously we've got other parks and areas as well, so within all of the area that we cover, we are trying to give this as much coverage as we possibly can. And the officers are down now on foot. One of the concerns was that officers were coming up, driving around and not getting out of the car. They are now actively getting out of the car and walking around and talking and engaging with people. So we are really trying to be really proactive in what we're doing and trying to engage and really encourage people to tell us what the problems are. If we're not told what the problems are, we can't resolve them. And that was the key message from the residents' meeting in the day of action. please pick up the phone and tell us, and that way, together, and it has to be together between us and the residents. We can't do this on our own. It's got to be housing, it's got to be the council, it's got to be the residents. Together, we can try to get the problem sorted, and that's really where we're at. Okay? Thank you.
John.
We're actively encouraging legitimate use of the park. There's a lot of research that tells us that the higher the legitimate use of the park, the lower the illegitimate or antisocial use of the park. So we met on the 3rd of April with the Friends of Bell Park. One of the things I said, you know, if you can get hold of professional dog walkers, people who do it for a living, that is ideal, because people bringing dogs in, the use will go away. We are going to, assuming we can find a suitable site for it, to deploy a portable CCTV camera into the park. It does need a suitable site, and there are various legal restrictions on where that can point and what we can do, etc. But I'm fairly confident that we can meet those restrictions as long as we can get something to attach it to. And as Paul said, we've got a mobile phone which will deploy when it's not being used in other areas. And the patrols, the day of action that we did will be repeated. I've asked for that to happen across all of the wards throughout the whole of Albury Court Slade, and it will come back to South Court Slade and be centred around that park again. We're working with our colleagues in the licensing teams. I know one of the concerns is around how easy it is for young people to get hold of alcohol. It's a concern of mine. We did a considerable number of licensing checks on the day of action, and that's continuing. And if we think that traders are selling alcohol to people they shouldn't be selling it to, we'll put a test purchase operation in, so we'll use our police cadets to test that. And if they're found to be breaking the law, then we'll prosecute, as simple as that. Equally, if we find people buying alcohol and then knowingly providing that to young people, they can be dealt with. I echo what Paul has said. Police can't do this on their own. There is no simple fix to this. A lot of the people that are causing the problems from last year, we know who they are, and they all live in there. So there's work to be done with housing, there's work to be done with council and social behavioural teams, there's work to be done with the schools about what message they're giving the press, etc. Any questions for me?
You say you're putting officers, vans on the streets, etc., in the park. Very laudable, it's great, that's happening. However, I grew up in this area, I know it's a rabbit warren of alleyways and twitterings. And I would suggest that maybe weekends, maybe we could have officers walking around the streets as well and just keeping, because at the end of the day, these kids will disappear. I was one of those kids once. And I know they're little sods, I know that, but it doesn't necessarily make them bad or evil. They just need a little bit more injection into them from society in general. Let's take them in, let's help them out.
Yeah.
You know, rather than demonise or victimise them.
Yeah.
But I think personally, my granddad was a copper around the Port Slade in the 50s. And he said to me, he said, in this area you need feet on the streets because it's a rabbit warren of alleyways, and it is. And I can get from here to the Downs and hardly touch the main road.
Yeah.
I know myself, and these kids know that. So I just think maybe expand that out a little bit further than the park itself, up Boundary. I mean, Boundary is quiet, that's what it used to be, but however, Eastwood Road down that way is very quiet, and it can be a little bit dicey down that way. So that towards Fishersgate it can get a bit worse.
And I'd say you make a good point, and certainly one of the things we said to the council is about trying to close some of those twins and whatever down, because it does cause us problems. One of the tactics that many years ago when I first started in the police force, one of the things that we used to do there was to walk around with a video camera and record the behaviour, and actually once we've identified then who those people are, take them back and show it to their parents, who are often blissfully unaware of what Johnny's doing in his time. Technology's moved on. Most of our officers now walk around with body-worn video, so it makes that process a lot simpler, and that's again something that we'll be looking to develop actually, you know, when we see that behaviour, stop that child, take them home, show the parent.
Well, a good old way, like we used to get taken home by.
If the parent doesn't take any notice, then that's something else we've got to do.
That's a good ball, yeah, that's a good ball, that's your fault. No.
Can I come up with something totally stupid, or at least I know it's going to sound stupid in this day and age, but like this gentleman, I've lived in this area all my life, so a lot of what he's saying is very relevant. But there was a process when I was a kid, and it did go on until not so very long ago. You had a local policeman. You had a local policeman that done the beat. He knew who people were. He knew who they were, what they were doing, and when they were doing it. You know, you're talking about all these cameras and doing this and doing that. It's going to cost loads and loads of money to put cameras up and things like that. Let's have a local copper. Let's have a local copper, one that gradually gets to know the neighbours, the people, someone that we can talk to, someone we know who's going to be there. Because a lot of people around here will tell you, I can't remember the last time they saw a policeman in the street. Whether you need it or whether you don't, we don't see one. And when we do want one, the last time we wanted one, we phoned up the police because there was a big fight going on from the civic centre close to the park. There was a big fight going on. We phoned the police because there were kids with cycle chains fighting in the street, and the police were too busy. That night somebody got stabbed. Next morning the police were crawling around. Did you see this? Did you see that? But they never even bothered to come out that night. You know, this is the sort of thing that the public are facing with the police.
I was just trying to finish, sorry. What happens when PCOs aren't there?
Well, there are police officers 24 hours a day.
But you're saying you haven't got the police officers?
Well, you have got police officers, and don't forget there are police officers working 24 hours a day across the division who are part of the response team. Now, they are given a lot of tasks over and above responding to calls. And just picking up on the point in relation to the fact that no officers turn up at the job you mentioned, you know, I'm sorry that happened. What I can tell you is that 90% of the calls that we get that are emergencies, we're there within 15 minutes. That's quicker than anywhere else in Sussex. And that's all of Brighton, Hove and Portslade. So, and actually that record's got better. So, you know, that means 9 times out of 10 we'll be there within 15 minutes.
So jumping in and out of gardens, how would you... Yeah.
Well, I think you heard the sort of the plans. They're working with the council to try and cut off some of the Twitters and that.
I mean, Mr. Kemp there just said about maximising stuff with matching up with the amount of money we got. But you spent £4 million at Balkan last year, policing a demonstration that was peaceful. I know I was there. And you spent another £500,000 last week on the March thing. That's £4.5 million of our money gone down to Swanee for the benefit of Quadrilla UK and the March for England. I mean, these people get annoyed by this. Can you not see that? Can you not see that our hard-earned money that we pay council tax, and you want another 135 quid out of each household, which is fair enough, we haven't got a problem with that, as long as we get value for money, and we're not getting value for money.
Okay, 3 points. 3 points there. One.
Yeah.
One
focus on.
Yeah, I was going to say one.
The point is, they wasted £4 million of our money.
Sorry. Let me give you 2 seconds just to address it. £4 million. People have a right in this country to protest. People died in 2 world wars for that right, and I will defend their right to protest until the last breath of my body. The police have a job to make sure people can protest safely. They also have a job to make sure businesses can lawfully go about their everyday business. And that was the situation. Now, the £4 million that it cost, you're absolutely right, it was just short of that, to police that protest. £1 million of that has been paid back by government because I lobbied really hard. It's never been paid back before. This was the first time anybody had asked the government to pay for anti-shale gas protests, and the government coughed up. Plus, I got a written undertaking from the policing minister that future shale gas protests in Sussex will be paid back in full. Well, and I have that in writing. Your council tax would never go up £130,000. My mother wouldn't allow it. She'd shoot me first. People agreed to have a small increase in their precept. The maximum is about £2.70 for the entire year if you're on a bandy tax, so only £2.70. I agree, it's still a rise, but there were specific areas we wanted to fund. 1, extra police officers. 2, rape and serious sexual offences. We need a specialised unit in Sussex because it wasn't being tackled properly. And the third area was cybercrime. And that is what you're paying the extra little bit for. But I absolutely understand your frustrations. I totally understand what it's like to live with antisocial behaviour. It really gets my goat when people call it low-level crime, because it isn't, because it affects you every day. It makes your lives really miserable. I totally get that. So do the police officers. And I'm really delighted. I mean, when Chief Superintendent Kemp said you've got 2 of the best here, you really have got some really dedicated officers. They've put together an action plan. They've got to work with the council as well. So please lobby your local councillors to work with the police to find a solution. And if there's any organisations out there that do any diversionary work with the kids, that will work with the youths in the holidays, let me know in my office, because I have a community fund that they can apply to. So if there's football, diversionary games going on in the school halls, let me know. If there's a local boxing group, let me know. Because if we can give these young people something to do, it keeps them out of your parks, off your streets, and actually makes them much more productive.
Gives them discipline as well, it does. I know that sport does give discipline.
That's my plea.
Okay, so the meeting's now concluded. As you can see, a lot of people from South Portslade have aired their grievances to Katie Bourne and Neville Kemp, 2 of the top officers in not only Brighton but Katie Bourne is Commissioner for the whole of Sussex. Now, I asked her the question about the money she spent at Balcombe, and she said, and it's on camera, it's on film, that the government will pick up the bill for any policing of any shale gas exploration demonstrations in Sussex in the future. So let's see if she does. Let's see if they do. I'll guarantee they won't. And let's face it, Balcombe was one. There's going to be loads more. So people of Sussex, people of Britain, people of the world, boycott your local police. Get this done. Get it down. Get them on camera saying the government are going to fund it. Because if they don't, one of them's lying. We've got them bang to rise. Over to you.